This program is brought to you by Emory University.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about this critical edition that I'm editing of Original Sacred Harp, and then I'm going to pivot to talk a bit about Readux, which is the tool that the lit software development team and ECDS have worked on. That this edition that I'm editing is essentially proof of concept of the tool. And then I'll finish up by saying just a bit about, I think, some of the opportunities that Readux offers for faculty at Emory to do their own research and also potentially even to use in teaching. So first of all, what is the Original Sacred Harp? So Original Sacred Harp is it's a shape note songbook. So this is a taste of what are shape notes. Shape notes are a system of music notation developed around 1800, really meant to make reading music as easy as possible. So it's a pedagogical system. And you can see what it looks like. This is just the standard C major scale. So if you're familiar with standard Western classical notation, this is similar to that, with the exception that each of the note heads has its own shape, and each shape corresponds to a syllable. So it's basically a way to take advantage of the fact that we have these markers for musical notes, and rather than just letting them all be the same, why don't we have that, the shape of that marker signify something, in this case, how high or low the note falls in the scale. So method originally made in a competitive marketplace to make its compilers kind of give them a competitive advantage, but became a really popular system in the 19th century for teaching music. The Sacred Harp is the most popular tune book today, and in its day, one of the most popular by far, that used this shape note musical notation. So published in 1844, compiled by two folks from West Georgia, and published in Philadelphia. And really, at the time, it was one of a number of books that looked oblong. This is the title page, but you can see the oblong structure of the pages. The book would sit open in your lap, hardcover. So really, though, just one of a number of books that were at the center of a real popular music tradition at that time, a popular style of social singing, sacred texts, but used really for interdenominational kind of social gatherings. And here's just a couple of pictures from the 20th century. I don't have any from the 19th century, but pictures of Sacred Harp singings in the 20th century to just give you a picture that this is also a practice, not just a book, but a real social practice. So a cappella, 4-part group harmony singing. The book's primarily used at what these are, which is called singing conventions, so large gatherings where anyone who wants to come can sit in this hollow square formation with one part arranged on each side of the square, and they just sing all day. It's great fun. The Original Sacred Harp is really a kind of a critical marker of a transition from this status as just one of a number of books at the center of a popular music culture to really more of a subcultural status where singing out of the Sacred Harp was an activity that people saw as something they had to defend and articulate the value for as a practice rather than just something that we do because it's what we do. So you can really see that here's the front cover of the volume that I've been focusing on. And you can see how there's kind of a conflicted stance towards regarding Sacred Harp at this period in the early 20th century as something contemporary, but also as holding on to something historical. You can see the original Sacred Harp, revised, corrected, and enlarged, right? There's a real commitment in the decisions of the editor to musical conservatism. So you see the standard melodies. Standard doesn't mean of standard quality. It really means that these are the great standard old melodies that we never want to lose. And that they're living, stirring Sacred Harp songs and odes and anthems, both new and old. But then at the bottom you see all plates and everything new, and you see, I would recommend not putting a statement like just out on the cover of your book if you also then put the date, because even in September of 1911, it probably seemed like it wasn't just out. Still very recent. So the Centennial Edition, which is a copy of circulating around the room, is a collaboration between Pitts Theology Library, the Sacred Harp Publishing Company, which is a nonprofit in West Georgia that publishes the contemporary edition of the Sacred Harp that's used by singing conventions in about 25 countries and all over the US, and ECDS to mark 4 years late the 100th anniversary of the publication of this volume. So it's a very carefully produced, digitized facsimile of the book's 550 pages, along with a critical introduction. So you can see the look of the pages. They're scanned, digitized, cleaned up, but very much trying to be faithful to the original. And what we're working on now is a kind of a digital critical edition, a companion to this print edition, but one that takes things several steps further. Looking at the music, we've already looked at the shape notes, and you can also just see, looking at this page, that there's a lot going on. There's things it's probably hard to see at this distance, but there's changes made to the plates, between printings that are visible on the page. There's a lot of things about the page itself that are really critical to understanding the book. And so it's very clear that we needed to have the digital edition also center on facsimile, center on the page images themselves. We also wanted to take advantage of opportunities the web affords. We wanted to adopt the standards, that folks like the MLA and others that have guidelines for digital critical editions that they put forward. So we wanted to make sure we're using TEI to encode the text. We also wanted to take advantage of the internet search capabilities and things of that nature. And then we wanted also to have a way to annotate the text, and for those annotations themselves to contain things like multimedia, images, in some cases sound, things of that nature. So I'll turn now to Readux, which is the tool that Sarah Palmer's right over there is the product manager of, and Rebecca Hoser has been the lead developer of, and it's really a great collaborative effort between ECDS and the Lit software development team. And we're looking at the kind of beta test versions that we can see a little bit more than what you can access right now on the web publicly. Anyone can access test Readux here at Emory, but for the rest of the world, just go to redux.library.emory.edu and you can find the site. So Readux is an environment for browsing, reading, and conducting text analysis on books in Emory's collections as they were digitized. So as you can see here, and these are just the volumes in test. If you look at the regular Readux, you can see thousands of volumes already within Readux that you can navigate. So it's this environment for browsing, reading, and conducting some text analysis. It's also a new tool for annotating and publishing digital critical editions. And the release that's about to go live features this new annotation functionality we've been working on. We're now working on the export functionality that will enable the real work of publishing digital editions. But the earlier stages of reading and browsing and text analysis and stuff like that is already online, and you can check it out right now. As you can see here, when you visit one of these collections, and again, there's many more volumes in these collections on the public site, you can take any item and you can download a PDF, you can view the PDF in your browser, you can send the text if the volume's been OCR'd, you can send that text to Voyant, which is a simple tool for text analysis, and you can play around and do some simple text analysis on it. For a number of volumes, you can also drill down into the pages and read them online. Just kind of a simple, easy-to-use interface for browsing from page to page. There's also deep zoom, so you can really, for volumes that have been scanned at a high resolution, you can really drill down and see details. So it's a great interface just for browsing books in Emory's digital collection. It's also an unprecedented tool for digital critical editions. And we'll take a little look at the original Sacred Harp here. We'll go to page 4. So there's this same interface that we can use for browsing and for zooming in. We can also use to annotate books. So the TEI that represents the recognized page text is actually mapped as text overlaid invisibly on this digital image. So even though what we're browsing is the scanned page of the book itself, the text is highlightable, selectable, it's fully searchable, and it's also taggable with annotations. So If I'm logged in, as you all saw me log in at the beginning, you can log in, in this case, with my Gmail account. You can also use, I think, GitHub, Twitter, and Facebook accounts, so anyone can create an account. And just click on this little button here, and a screen comes up where I can add annotations. I can annotate text, as I've just done. I could just test this and enter it. This uses Markdown, so you can add simple formatting, save an annotation. I can also select a page region. So we think of all the cases in which, say in that other book that we looked at, you might want to annotate an illustration rather than text. That's also something you can do in this interface. And I can browse and edit my annotations as well. They're saved, so once I'm done, I can log out and I can come back and work on them at another time. So future enhancements, I should also say you can add images to annotations at this stage, and you can also add tags. So for example, in these historical notes that the editor of this book, Joe James, authored, he'll sometimes reference, and if you have time, you should read this historical note, by the way, it's really something. But he'll mention the sources that he drew on. He had about 90 sources that he drew on in editing this book and in researching its history, and I could tag each one of those sources. So I could, in a sense, create a map of the ways that James drew on his own library in compiling this book just through the tags functionality. And we're creating future enhancements to the annotation functionality that will enable the inclusion of things like audio or video and potentially even the ability to share annotations within a group. And so we're presently developing the export functionality, as I mentioned. You'll be able to export the content and annotations as TEI, which is part of our focus on the archival, the need for an archival record of these editions, thinking about their future preservation. And you can also export as a rich, browsable website. We're doing this with a tool called Jekyll that works with this hosting environment through GitHub called GitHub Pages. Yeah, so basically the websites themselves will look something like this environment we've seen for annotating, but they'll be public-facing, and they'll present the text complete with this searchability and the selectability of the text and the annotations. So just a word before I finish about using Readux for your own research. On a very basic level, you can use Readux right now to discover and browse thousands of books that Emory has digitized. It's really a new portal into the great work that the Woodruff Library team that does digitization, headed by Kyle, has been doing for years now. And as you've seen for a number of these, there's page-level access. You can do some text analysis in Voyant. There's a lot you can do right there. For volumes with page access, you can also enter annotations. So as I've shown, this is a tool for digital editions, but you can also, I think, use this annotation functionality as just a way to take notes on primary sources. So it's really a way to just conduct your own research in these texts. And you can return to these notes. And again, once you're logged in, your notes are saved across all the books in Redux. I also think this is a tool that could be used for teaching. So you could imagine finding one of these primary sources that's relevant to a class that you're teaching and assigning your students the task of doing some annotations or even working collaboratively on annotations of a text.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.